Fortnite's Icon series launched 3 years ago, and since then, fans have thrown out all kinds of theories speculating who we'd see next. Some predict the future. Week after week, we'd see a new collab announced, and at this point, Mr. Beast entered the conversation. Only celebs and gaming personalities were considered to be icons, so this Reddit poster must have had their mind blown when their concept almost nailed the actual skin. Since Chapter 2, everyone has been desperate for their favorite characters to appear in Fortnite, but some are hinted years before they release. With Master Chief and Kratos in the game, it's only a matter of time for Doomslayer, and fans caught on to a mind-blowing clue. When the Grey Feather skin released, it seemed innocent on the surface, but Epic secretly renamed it from Dread Knight, which is a character from Doom. Seemed like a weird choice, but it wasn't until years later that Epic would accidentally expose a folder called Doom on a live stream. The theories were now full steam ahead, and after waiting so long, Doom Guy could now gritty. It wasn't the only one, because the longest ever prediction just came true, and that's the release of Hulk. Since Chapter 1 superheroes, everyone wanted to play as their favorites, even if it was budget versions like Carbide or Valor. We all love making custom skin concepts, and Hulk was insanely popular. We waited through the entirety of Chapter 1, and then through the Marvel season, but it felt like he was way too big to ever come out. But once Thanos arrived, there was now a chance, and in Chapter 4, he finally appeared in the shop, nearly 4 years after the first predictions. But did you know players connected the most well-hidden clue to predict a crossover? Yeah, as soon as Chapter 3 launched, everyone explored the island's locations, but only the highly dedicated Dragon Ball fans spotted something unusual. This island seemed like nothing more than an innocent POI, but then others noticed that it looked pretty similar to the Kame House. A lot of the community, well, they thought it was a stretch, until late Season 3 when Goku arrived. But he's not the only person in disguise, because even before the reveal, we all worked out Chapter 3's biggest twist. As soon as we entered the new map, theories started to build around the mech coming back. With its arm in the ocean and the Devourer being excavated right in front of us, it could only mean one thing: the return of Paradigm. That's cool and all, but the real payoff was her voice, and it was hiding a massive secret. After connecting the dots, people realized that the translated version of Paradigm's voice was someone who worked with Brie Larson. After months of teasers, she was eventually unmasked, revealing Brie as the last member of the Seven. Maybe one helmet that should stay on is Darth Vader's, which had a lot more build up to this collab than you might expect. Star Wars didn't arrive in the game until Chapter 2, and immediately people began to ask for Vader, but the chances seemed slim until Disney changed their mind. The new Obi-Wan series gave Epic the chance to add not just him, but Vader too, and weeks later, we even spotted his name on an Epic employee screen. With everyone predicting his arrival, we made another guess that we would soon regret. Fortnite doesn't exactly have the best history when it comes to Star Wars pickaxes, so the community joked about him using a knife or maybe even a shovel, but of course we got the Imperial Spoon. Wasn't the only teaser right in front of us, because so many people worked out what was gonna happen in the live event months before. From the mech arm in the water and the Devourer bones emerging, it seemed obvious the robot would return for a second fight. It wasn't long before we started to collect scrap to repair it, and at last saw it being built on the Ice Moon in preparation for collision. Not all predictions are good news though, because as soon as we got Colombo, there are already theories about what would happen if he died. Even Fortnite themselves swore to protect him, with Tilted being destroyed if they failed. But when the IO arrived in Season 2, it wasn't looking good for him. We all hoped he was okay, and sure enough, some hibernation mounts slowly appeared until Epic baited us, removing them and putting his skull on the map instead. I mean, you really gotta be careful what you wish for. But that's less of a worry for Donald Mustard, because all of his wishes are granted in Fortnite, with hundreds of his favorite characters coming to the game. Now, a lot of players didn't notice his cameo in the latest Matrix film, but if you did, it was obvious something was on the way. We all started to predict what skins we could get, and with Keanu's face already in the game, it made a lot of sense. Everything pointed to a collab, and while we were right in the end, it just didn't exactly live up to the expectations. Now, it's not all bad, because sometimes Epic even makes our dream predictions come true. In Chapter 2 Season 8, players noticed the water level at the grotto was dropping with every single update, meaning it could make a return. After weeks of waiting, the island flipped, and Chapter 3 introduced Covert Cavern, a new and improved version of the grotto that so many people loved. The IO aren't exactly great at keeping secrets either, because we also worked out the most important story character years before his announcement. We were introduced to Dr. Sloan in Season 7, but she wasn't the only new addition, because a secret base was holding the answer to an important question. On her her desk, you could find this photo of her joining the IO and shaking hands with a mysterious man. Many people started to assume this was the leader of the IO, which the Foundation told us was called Geno. It was a complete guess, but it turned out the theory was actually spot on. Until now, we never knew if it was truly him, but thanks to his reveal in the comics and the Ageless arriving in the Battle Pass, it looks like we got it right. There was also no question about the return of Fortnite's most iconic character. Ariana Grande's concert seemed pretty innocent at first, but if you paid close attention to the memory scan during it, they included none other than Kevin the Cube. Well, some people noticed this was different because it was actually on the Chapter 2 island. Fans had already begun making connections between the mothership's purple energy and the cubes, and it turns out they weren't crazy after all. The aliens were revealed to be the last reality, and they invaded the island with thousands in their army. I'll say this, sometimes you can't trust Epic's own teasers because when Bloodsport arrived, everyone was excited to see who was next. Fortnite added sprays for Polka Dot Man, King Shark, and Peacemaker, making everyone think we'd get these too. But then, nothing. Peacemaker's series released a few months later, giving him a second chance, with the hype building even more when John Cena himself teased an image on Instagram. It seemed like solid evidence the collab was about to happen, but then everyone was let down when he arrived as himself. Safe to say, we all felt a little scammed, and so did Innersloth. When the Imposters mode released, it was obvious that Epic took a lot of inspiration from Among Us, and many rumors started to appear that a collab was in the works until suddenly Innersloth said there was nothing. The community was pretty disappointed until the two games suddenly had the most wholesome thread confirming the collab would be coming. We all waited months to see what they had planned, and I gotta admit, the end result was perfect. It's kind of like the most anticipated crossover of all time. Iron Man and Hulk may have been clickbaited for years, but one character that always showed up was Spider-Man. He was the skin that everyone wanted. Chapter 3 marked one of the biggest collabs ever, with him finally topping the Battle Pass and even getting his own mythic, which made a lot of people wonder how much more could Epic do with Sony? Well, that was quickly answered when they dropped the bombshell of Tom Holland's Spidey showing up for Winterfest. And he somehow wasn't even the biggest reveal. Instead, Epic had been planning one of their most ridiculous moments of all time, but somehow people worked it out early. Since the Zero Crisis, we got our first look at the leader of the Seven. He was known as the Foundation, but some parts of his outfit were a little too interesting to miss. The metal armor and vent lined up perfectly with Dwayne Johnson's tattoo, and his voice even sounded similar. It took 3 more seasons of build-up until we finally heard him again, where he did this.
Impossible. I watched you die.
I got over it.
And originally, no one knew that event was going to take us into the shortest chapter ever. The last one ended with just 8 seasons and was expected from Epic once again. But as we entered the Chrome season, theories started to emerge that it was the last of the chapter already. The entire community refused to believe it could end after just 4 seasons, but sometimes these mad theories are just how Epic thinks. In January of 2021, Fortnite introduced Stealthy Stronghold, but this was no ordinary jungle. At first, players began to suspect it was a giant enclosure like in Jurassic Park, but the hints inside suggested otherwise. People found things like a crashed chopper scene, an iconic truck, and 3 red lines on the doors, all pointing to one thing: Predator. These were all movie references, and he later arrived as the secret skin, roaming the jungle as a brand new boss. Sometimes Epic likes to be more subtle with their teasers. In Season 3, we saw Captain America arrive, but this trailer meant a whole lot more than we realized. In the teaser, he arrives in the Bifrost, the method of travel from Asgard, meaning only one thing: Thor was coming too. Some people were skeptical, but they were soon silenced when Marvel took over for Season 4. Now sometimes even Epic don't know what they're gonna add. Despite them saying they would never add cars, it became one of the most clickbaited things ever. From being able to drive trucks to pulling off stunts, everyone wanted to see this in the game, and it actually happened. As soon as the water drained, the Joyride update was released, unleashing cars and trucks on the island for one of the best updates the game has ever seen. At this point, you might be wondering how I haven't mentioned Fortnite's own Prophet. Jimothy clickbaited dozens of things in the game back in 2018. While every single one seemed ridiculous, if you look back now, it's crazy how much he got right. From sharks to jetpacks and even choppas, this guy was literally a time traveler. That's every time a Fortnite fan predicted the future. It's been Tommy, and keep it here on Top 5 Gaming.